My entitled sister-in-law had a lifelong obsession with stealing everything I loved, so when we both got pregnant at the same time, I set up a massive trap to ruin her baby name announcement. Ever since I married her brother, she would copy my haircuts, buy the exact same clothes, and even booked her honeymoon at the exact same resort as us just to upstage me. When my husband and I announced we were expecting our first daughter, she was furious, but miraculously, she got pregnant with a girl just 3 weeks later. At a family dinner, my mother-in-law asked if we had picked out any names yet. I knew my sister-in-law was listening closely, so I pretended to hesitate and said we absolutely fell in love with the name chlamydia because it sounded incredibly elegant and French. My husband almost choked on his drink, but he saw me kick his leg under the table and played along. My sister-in-law immediately scoffed and said it sounded stupid. 2 months later, she hosted a massive lavish baby shower and invited over 100 guests, including my husband's very conservative religious extended family. She stood on a chair, grabbed a microphone, and proudly announced that after months of deep thought, she was naming her beautiful daughter Chlamydia. The entire room went dead silent. Her grandmother dropped a plate of cookies on the floor. My sister-in-law looked confused and smiled, waiting for the applause. Finally, my husband's uncle stood up and loudly explained that she had just named her unborn child after a highly contagious sexually transmitted infection. The color completely drained from her face. She burst into absolute hysterics, screaming that I had intentionally tricked her. I just calmly took a sip of my sparkling water and told her I had no idea what she was talking about because my husband and I had already legally registered our daughter's name as Victoria months ago. Her own mother dragged her out of the room in pure embarrassment, while the guests could not stop laughing. She had already bought thousands of dollars worth of custom embroidered blankets, nursery decor, and matching clothing with the infected name permanently stitched into everything. She tried to demand that I pay to replace all the custom baby gear because I manipulated her, but my husband laughed in her face and blocked her number. She ended up having to paint over the massive nursery mural herself while 7 months pregnant, and the entire family still secretly laughs about it behind her back. My entitled seatmate refused to give up my first-class airplane seat so her spoiled teenager could have more legroom, but she ended up getting her entire family banned from the airline and ruining their dream vacation. I had spent 2 years saving up my airline miles to buy a first-class ticket for a 14-hour flight to Japan. When I finally boarded the plane completely exhausted, I walked up to my assigned window seat and found a smug-looking woman and her teenage son sitting in my row. Her son was literally sprawled out across my expensive seat, playing video games on his phone. I politely showed the woman my boarding pass and told her they were in the wrong row. She just rolled her eyes and loudly announced that her son was very tall and needed the extra legroom, so I should just be a good person and go sit in their economy seats in the back of the plane. I laughed and told her absolutely not because I paid $4,000 for this specific seat. She immediately started screaming at the top of her lungs, calling me a selfish jerk and making a massive scene in front of the entire cabin. A flight attendant rushed over to calm her down and asked to see her boarding pass. The woman aggressively shoved her economy ticket into the attendant's face and demanded that I be forcefully downgraded because she was a premium member. The flight attendant politely informed her that she had zero status with the airline and ordered her to move back to economy immediately or she would be removed from the flight. Instead of complying, the woman completely lost her mind and threw her iced coffee directly at me, ruining my shirt. She then grabbed her son's arm and refused to unbuckle her seatbelt, yelling that she was being discriminated against. The captain actually stepped out of the cockpit and gave her one final warning, but she spit at his shoes. That was her biggest mistake. Within 2 minutes, 3 armed airport police officers boarded the plane. The woman suddenly started fake crying and claiming I had assaulted her, but literally every single passenger in first class had their phones out recording her entire meltdown. The officers grabbed her by the arms and dragged her kicking and screaming off the plane while her embarrassed teenager quietly followed behind. Because she assaulted a flight crew member, the airline permanently banned her entire family from ever flying with them again. They completely missed their non-refundable luxury vacation to Tokyo, and I spent the next 14 hours drinking free champagne in my massive reclining seat while wearing a comfortable complimentary pajama shirt provided by the sweet flight attendant. My parents secretly drained my entire $60,000 college fund to pay for my older brother's lavish destination wedding, so I legally cut them off and let them lose their retirement home. Growing up, my brother David was the absolute golden child who could do no wrong while I was just the quiet backup kid. My grandparents had set up equal trust funds for both of us to use specifically for college tuition when we turned 18. When David turned 18, he immediately blew his entire fund on designer clothes, expensive vacations, and a brand new sports car that he crashed 3 months later. I always planned to use my fund to go to medical school, so I worked part-time jobs throughout high school just to save extra money. 2 weeks before my college tuition was due, I went to the bank to officially transfer my trust fund money, but the teller looked at me with deep pity and told me the account was completely empty. My parents had used a legal loophole as my guardians to drain all $60,000 of my money. I rushed home and confronted them, and my mother casually sipped her tea and told me David needed the money to pay for his massive destination wedding in Hawaii because his fiancée deserved the very best. She told me I was smart enough to just take out massive student loans and pay it back myself. I didn't scream or throw a tantrum. I packed my bags, moved out that exact night, and completely stopped talking to them. I worked 3 exhausting jobs, lived in tiny, dangerous apartments, and took out massive loans to get myself through medical school. It took me 10 miserable years, but I finally became a successful surgeon and paid off every single dime of my debt. I never spoke to my family again until last week when my parents suddenly showed up uninvited at my hospital office. David had gotten divorced completely, bankrupted his failed business, and moved back in with them. Because they had remortgaged their house to pay off his massive debts, the bank was now legally foreclosing on their home. My mother started crying and demanded I buy them a new house because I was rich and family is supposed to take care of family. I just smiled, opened my desk drawer, and handed her a printed copy of my empty trust fund statement from 10 years ago. I told her David's wedding was her retirement plan and she should ask him for a room. Then I called hospital security to have them permanently escorted out of the building. I heard they are now living in a tiny, cramped 1-bedroom apartment while David sleeps on their couch. My arrogant boss stole my massive 6-month project and presented it to the CEO as his own work, so I triggered a hidden slide that publicly exposed his incompetence and got him fired on the spot. I work as a senior marketing analyst, and I spent over 6 months building a multi-million-dollar campaign strategy for our biggest corporate client. My boss, Greg, was incredibly lazy and constantly took credit for his team's hard work. The night before the massive presentation to our national board of directors, Greg locked me out of the shared company drive. He emailed the CEO claiming I was slacking off and that he had to stay up all night to finish the project himself. He explicitly told me not to attend the board meeting the next morning, but I knew Greg was technologically illiterate, and I was fully prepared. What he didn't know was that I had embedded a timed macro script into the final PowerPoint file. I sat at my desk, sipping my morning coffee, while Greg confidently stood in the glass boardroom pitching my exact ideas to the CEO. He was getting massive praise until he clicked to the final financial slide. Instead of the budget, the screen flashed bright red and displayed a massive hidden watermark that said, "This presentation was entirely created by me, and Greg has absolutely zero access to the actual financial models." The macro then automatically locked the entire presentation, requiring my personal secure password to unlock the data. The CEO looked at Greg, who was sweating profusely and frantically clicking the frozen mouse. Greg tried to lie, but the CEO immediately called me into the boardroom. I calmly walked in, unlocked the presentation in 3 seconds, and delivered the rest of the pitch flawlessly. And the client loved it and signed the contract immediately. The CEO fired Greg in the hallway before lunch and gave me his corner office and a massive salary raise. My entitled roommate secretly sold my golden retriever puppy to a wealthy family while I was at work to pay off her massive credit card debt, so I used her own location-sharing app to track her down and got her arrested for grand theft. I had been living with my roommate Jessica for 6 months, and she was constantly complaining about being broke. She spent all her money on designer clothes and expensive dinners while constantly dodging her half of the rent. And last month, I finally saved up enough money to buy my dream dog, a beautiful, purebred golden retriever puppy named Bailey. Jessica absolutely hated the dog because he accidentally chewed on one of her cheap shoes. Last Tuesday, I came home from a long 12-hour nursing shift, and Bailey was nowhere to be found. I panicked and asked Jessica where he was. She put on a fake crying performance and said someone accidentally left the front door open and the dog just ran away. I spent 4 hours walking around the neighborhood in the dark, crying and hanging up lost posters. But then I remembered I had recently installed a hidden motion sensor camera in the living room to keep an eye on Bailey while I was at work. I pulled up the footage on my phone and my blood completely boiled. The video clearly showed Jessica handing my puppy to a strange woman right in our living room, and the woman handed Jessica a thick envelope of cash. She literally sold my best friend to pay for her shopping addiction. I didn't confront her right away, and I didn't scream. Instead, I went into her iPad, which was linked to her phone's location sharing, and saw she had visited a massive mansion in the wealthy part of town earlier that afternoon. I grabbed the video footage, my dog's official registration papers, and drove straight to the police station. The officers were absolutely disgusted. They drove to the mansion, knocked on the door, and found the woman who bought Bailey. She had no idea the dog was stolen, and she immediately handed him back to me while pointing the finger straight at Jessica. The police drove back to my apartment while I waited outside with my puppy. They walked right through the front door and arrested Jessica for felony grand theft and fencing stolen property while she was in the middle of doing her makeup. Her parents had to drain their savings to bail her out, and I legally evicted her the very next morning by tossing all her designer clothes into the street. My arrogant manager fired me the day before our biggest client pitch so he could steal my 8 months of hard work and claim the $50,000 bonus for himself, but he had no idea I had secretly hard-coded a massive trap into the presentation. I worked as a senior data analyst for a massive marketing firm and had spent every single weekend building a revolutionary new predictive software that was going to land us our biggest international client. My manager, Greg, was a lazy narcissist who spent his days playing golf and taking credit for his team's success. He knew my software was a guaranteed win, and he wanted the massive cash bonus and the vice president promotion that came with it. On Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 day before the massive board meeting with the client, Greg called me into his office and handed me a termination letter. He falsely claimed I was underperforming and demanded I hand over the master flash drive containing the final software presentation before security escorted me out. He had this disgusting, smug smile on his face because he thought he completely outsmarted me. I didn't yell or throw a tantrum. I calmly handed him the drive, packed up my desk, and walked out of the building. What Greg didn't know is that I had anticipated his betrayal for weeks. The software on that drive was fully functional, but I had secretly embedded a delayed execution script directly into the code. On Friday morning, Greg stood proudly in the executive boardroom in front of our CEO, the board of directors, and the billionaire clients. He confidently plugged in my flash drive and started taking full credit for the thousands of hours of coding I had done. He was bragging about his genius vision, and the executives were completely amazed. But exactly 5 minutes into the live demonstration, my hidden script activated. The screen suddenly went completely black. Then a massive red warning box popped up on the 80-inch projector screen. The text read in huge letters, "This entire software architecture was exclusively designed and coded by me, and if Greg is presenting this, it means he stole my intellectual property and fired me to hide it." It even included timestamped screenshots of his lazy emails, demanding I do his work for him. The boardroom went dead silent. The billionaire client immediately stood up and said he refused to do business with thieves and walked right out the door. The CEO was absolutely furious. Greg tried to stutter and make excuses, but security was called and he was publicly dragged out of the boardroom in front of the entire company. He was instantly fired without severance, and the company sued him for the lost client contract. The CEO actually called me later that afternoon, begging me to come back. I agreed, but only after he offered me Greg's old job title, a massive corner office, and a base salary that was double what I was making before. Greg is now completely blacklisted from the corporate industry and works a minimum wage retail job.
My parents didn't listen to me when I warned them about sharing a house with my sister, and now now they don't know what to do. My sister is a mess, and my parents decided to share a house with her husband, and their baby. Now it has turned into a complete nightmare. I'll start by saying my sister has a lot of issues. Some are real, some are not. She has very poor coping mechanisms and struggles to handle basic responsibilities. Before this, when she lived with her husband, they racked up $10,000 in debt, and their apartment was borderline hoarded. She said that if she moved in with my parents, she would take care of them. I told my parents I didn't believe that would happen. I warned them that they would end up taking care of her instead, but they decided to go ahead with it anyway. They all split the mortgage on a large, beautiful house, thinking it would be a good investment for the future. It has been almost 2 years since they moved in, and during that time, my sister had a baby. She still does very little for the baby or for herself. Her husband helps a bit more, but not much. My mom has basically been raising the baby on her own, while also feeding everyone in the house and keeping everything clean. But my mom is older now, and she ended up seriously injuring herself while taking care of the baby. She needed surgery, and that's when everything fell apart. My sister and her husband had already used up all their leave when the baby was born, even though they didn't actually take care of him much during that time. So when my mom needed help, neither of them was able to step up. I asked my mom if she needed help, and she said yes. So I came to stay with her for a week. That was all I could manage without hurting my own finances. But her recovery is going to take months. Instead of arranging proper childcare, my sister asked my mom to contact someone she used to work with years ago to babysit. My mom wasn't comfortable with that, but my sister exploded and called her a bitch. She constantly pressures and bullies my mom into doing whatever she wants. My mom was so upset that she cried, but still went along with it. My dad eventually stepped in and told my sister that she is the parent, and it is her responsibility to find care for her child. Now, my sister is angry at my mom for telling my dad. At this point, my parents are completely fed up with doing everything for her. They are seriously considering asking my sister and her husband to move out. Honestly, I think they should. My sister clearly doesn't appreciate anything they've done. I stay out of it. My sister burned that bridge with me years ago, and I already warned my parents this would happen. She can hate me if she wants, but I'm happy and have my life together.
My mom lied about getting her TDAP vaccine. I hope this is okay to post here. I have no idea what to make of this situation, and I'm feeling very confused. My mom has slowly fallen down the Facebook anti-vax rabbit hole, posting more than 20 times a day about it. She has always been a bit of a hippie, but she is also a borderline alcoholic and has smoked cigarettes and weed daily since she was a teenager, which becomes relevant later. I live in a different city from my parents, and when I was pregnant, I made it clear that we would not be having any visitors until we felt ready. My mom was desperate to come and help, so I told her that any visitors would need to have an up-to-date TDAP vaccine. I did not ask for any other vaccines, just this one. She said that was fine, but never actually got it. I expected some hesitation, so I made it clear that I was not making any exceptions, and that the same rules applied to everyone. My dad is completely anti-vax and said that he would not get the TDAP vaccine. I told him that was fine, but the same rules applied. He understood, even if he was probably complaining about me behind my back. I was incredibly unwell during the postpartum period and nearly died. I really needed family support. My mom kept saying she would get the vaccine, but also said that since I had not told her when she could visit, she would wait. She told me to reach out if I needed help. I did reach out, but she still was not vaccinated. She said she would get it that week. A few weeks later, she told me on the phone that she had gotten the vaccine. When I asked for proof, she blew up at me. She said, how dare I question her? Told me to call her doctor or her boss to confirm it, even though it would take less than a minute to show the certificate on her phone. She also claimed she had strange side effects and took 3 days off work, even though she supposedly got the vaccine on a Friday and does not work weekends. She said she was deeply hurt that I would even suggest she was lying. Later, I found out she had told other family members she had no intention of getting the vaccine. When I confronted her about this, she dismissed it and said she would send me the certificate. Weeks have passed, and she keeps saying she will send it. But now she is saying that since my dad is not vaccinated and my child has had their first dose, it should not matter anymore. At this point, I feel frustrated and have canceled my trip to visit them. It would have been a very expensive trip just to take the baby there and come back. I would not have minded if she simply chose not to get vaccinated, but I am really upset that she lied to me. This is on top of her calling me stupid during my pregnancy for getting the TDAP vaccine myself. She said Facebook and TikTok are reliable sources, claimed I was being indoctrinated by my university, and said my degree does not matter. She also told me that drinking during pregnancy is not that bad because doctors used to recommend it, that listeria is not a big deal, and that I was rude for asking her not to smoke around me because smoking is not that harmful. So now I do not know what to do. I am being told it is not a big deal, and I feel guilty because I am their only child. I have been criticized for setting boundaries, and it is making me feel awful. I am confused and just wondering if anyone else has been in a similar situation. I am planning to start therapy, but I needed to get this out in the meantime. When the local pharmacist looked at my custom pill bottle, he went completely pale and asked who prescribed this medication to me. So I smiled and said my husband, because he is a renowned private psychiatrist. But the pharmacist immediately locked the front doors of the pharmacy and called the police. I had been married to my husband Arthur for 2 years. He was incredibly charming, wealthy, and worked as an exclusive private psychiatrist for high net worth clients. 6 months into our marriage, I started having severe memory lapses, dizzy spells, and overwhelming anxiety. Arthur was incredibly supportive and attentive. He diagnosed me with early onset neurological degeneration and prescribed a cocktail of custom compounded pills he brought home directly from his private clinic. He said he wanted to treat me privately to protect my reputation and save me from the stress of hospitals. I trusted him completely, but last week, I accidentally knocked my entire weekly pill organizer down the bathroom sink drain. Arthur was away at a medical conference in London, so I had to go 3 days without my medication. By the 3rd day, the heavy brain fog completely vanished. My hands stopped shaking, and I felt sharper and more alive than I had in a year. I found a backup bottle of the pills hidden in his desk and decided to take it to a local independent pharmacy just to see exactly what I'd been swallowing. The pharmacist, an older man named Mr. Higgins, analyzed the unmarked capsules in his lab. When he came back, he looked completely terrified. He asked who prescribed them, and when I said my husband, he grabbed his phone. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Ma'am, these aren't neurological supplements. This is a highly concentrated dose of an illegal chemical tranquilizer used strictly to sedate large animals." He said if I'd been taking them daily, my liver was likely weeks away from complete and total failure. The room started spinning. Mr. Higgins typed Arthur's medical license number from the bottle into the national database. The computer flashed red. That DEA number belonged to a doctor who died in a car crash in 1998. I couldn't breathe. I drove straight to the address of Arthur's supposed luxury downtown clinic, but it was just an empty, abandoned warehouse. I sped back home, took a crowbar, and smashed open his locked office safe. Inside, I didn't find patient files. I found a massive life insurance policy taken out on me just 3 months ago for $8 million. Right underneath it was a stack of legal paperwork heavily documenting my fake severe mental decline, designed to grant him full legal power of attorney over my massive family trust fund. He wasn't a doctor. He was a highly skilled professional con artist, slowly chemically lobotomizing me to steal my inheritance and leave me for dead. Arthur texted me that his flight had just landed and he was rushing home to take care of his sick wife. I didn't pack a bag and I didn't run. I called the FBI Financial Crimes Division and handed them the pills, the forged medical license, and the insurance fraud documents. When Arthur walked through the front door, putting on his fake concerned voice and holding a fresh bottle of my poison, 6 armed federal agents stepped out of the kitchen shadows. They tackled him directly to the hardwood floor, shattering the pill bottle. He was convicted of attempted murder and massive federal fraud and sentenced to 25 years in a maximum security prison, while I am fully recovered, managing my own wealth and incredibly thankful for a clumsy moment over a bathroom sink.
If you're going to break the law, don't draw attention to yourself. This happened several years ago. Sadly, the officer involved later lost his life in the line of duty, which was unrelated, but in the same area. I was on my lunch break and decided to make a quick trip to the grocery store. As I pulled into the parking lot, I came up to an all-way stop at the same time as another car coming from the opposite direction. We both came to a complete stop. They were going straight, and I was signaling to turn right. Then a black sports car approached from my left. The driver barely slowed down. It was obvious she had no intention of stopping. She sped right through the intersection, cutting both of us off, and continued flying through the parking lot like no one else mattered. Then she whipped into a parking spot right in front of the store, in a disabled parking space. I parked a bit farther away and headed inside. As I walked past her car, I noticed she didn't have a disabled plate or a hang tag. I thought about calling the non-emergency line, but figured she'd be gone before anything happened, so I just went into shop. When I came back out, there was a police car parked near the entrance, and her car was still in the disabled spot. As the officer was walking out of the store, I casually asked if he checked disabled parking spaces. He said yes, so I pointed out the sports car. The officer walked over, checked the plates, looked through the windshield, then went back to his patrol car, and I pulled up behind her, blocking her in. I didn't stay to see what happened next. I had to get back to work, but I definitely left with a smile on my face.
My toxic parents drained my entire $60,000 college fund to buy my golden child brother a luxury sports car. So I legally sold the massive vacation home they secretly put in my name, dodged taxes, and kept every single penny. I grew up as the invisible scapegoat of my family, while my older brother Ryan got absolutely everything he ever wanted. When I was 18, I found out my parents completely emptied the savings account my grandparents left for my college education to buy Ryan a brand new Porsche for his college graduation. When I confronted them, they told me to stop being selfish and that I could just take out student loans like a normal person. What they completely forgot was a massive legal loophole they created 5 years ago. My dad is a shady real estate investor, and to dodge a massive federal tax penalty, he legally transferred the deed of his luxurious lakefront vacation home entirely into my name when I turned 18. He told me it was just a temporary paperwork thing and kept the actual physical deed locked in his safe. I didn't scream at them for stealing my college money. I just went straight to the county clerk's office and requested a certified copy of the property deed. Then I contacted a high-end real estate agent and listed the fully furnished lakefront property for $800,000. Because the housing market was incredibly hot, I got a full cash offer in exactly 3 days. I signed the closing documents, legally transferred the ownership to a nice retired couple, and quietly deposited the massive check into a brand brand new private bank account. The absolute best part was that my parents and Ryan were planning to spend the entire summer at that lake house to celebrate his new car. A week later, my dad drove his truck up to the property and found the new owners changing the locks. He had a complete meltdown and called the police claiming the house was stolen. The cops looked at the new owner's legal paperwork and threatened to arrest my dad for trespassing. He called my phone screaming at the top of his lungs, demanding I reverse the sale and give him his money. I calmly reminded him that he legally gifted me that house, and I just used it to pay for the college education he stole from me. I blocked all of their numbers, paid my college tuition in full, and used the rest of the money to buy a beautiful apartment across the country while my dad had to sell Ryan's sports car just to afford his own massive tax fraud penalties. My bank locked my funds because of their mistake, and it turned into a complete nightmare. I had trusted a small local credit union with some of my money. One day, my card stopped working at an ATM, so I went inside the branch. A clerk helped me and gave me a code I could use to withdraw cash directly from my account. It was a normal feature they offered. A few days later, my account suddenly got flagged for review. There hadn't been any overdraft or suspicious activity. It was just a small internal delay on their end when processing a transaction. But despite that, my funds were locked. For over a month, I couldn't access my own money. Every time I called support, I got dismissive or unhelpful responses. At times, it even felt like they were judging me based on my background, which made the whole situation worse. I was frustrated and honestly didn't know what else to do. After talking it through with family, I decided to start pushing harder for a resolution. I began documenting everything and making sure my issue was visible and taken seriously. And then suddenly things changed. One day, I got a call directly from the bank's call center manager. They apologized, acknowledged the situation, and offered to transfer my full balance to another bank of my choice, along with a small compensation. Just like that, the issue was resolved. It was a frustrating experience, but it showed me one thing. Sometimes, when you push back and make your voice heard, people finally start paying attention.